Powell and myself. This one is budgeting with a calendar system. As if you were here last week, you heard Sharon say that we're just kind of taking a bigger jump and going further deeper into topics, because typically when we get to talk about budgeting, we're like, hey, and then you should check out an envelope system, or you should check out a calendar system and figure out what works for you. But that's all we do. So the next 3 weeks are focusing a bit more on the different types of systems to help you budget. If you've never created a budget before, or you're new to the program or need a reminder, we use the budget cycle, it's called. And the first step is to set your financial goals so that you know where you're going, what you want. It could be just to be able to pay your rent and necessities, and to not have stress or as much stress. Those can be financial goals. It could be to own a house someday. And they can go, whatever your financial goals are. You need to track your expenses, as much as people hate to do that. When I work with people, that's always the one. They're like, oh, do I really have to? Yes, to know where our money is going, we need to know our expenses. And then prepare our spending plan. We have to follow the plan, evaluate the plan, and then adjust your plan. So a budget or a spending plan is a living kind of document. It's not something you create and then set it aside and never look at it again. So today we're going to talk all about a calendar system, and this is one of the easiest ways to budget. It's probably when you were first, becoming an adult, you probably did it without realizing it. And its whole purpose is to be able to keep track of your finances, and whoever is in your household that is contributing and taking away from your finances should be included in this calendar system as well when you're budgeting. So a calendar system helps you to visually see all these things. So the first one is your due dates for your bills. The next one is to be able to see your income. So if you're a solo person and it's only your income coming in, mark that. If you live with other people who are contributing to the household, make sure to mark their income as well, so you can see, do we get paid twice a month, once a month? Are we salaried so it's very consistent, or is it a little bit all over the place because sometimes we're going to work more because we're in construction? You also want to make sure you're putting in your savings amount, and we'll talk more about that in a little bit. And then also a way to see your debt. We want to make sure we're taking care of our current debt so that we're not falling behind and making our minimum. We want to make sure we make our minimum payments, but then also what is our plan for additional debt that is not met by those minimum payments as well. So the whole purpose of budgeting, of using the calendar system, as I said, as a visual representation, is to see what's ahead. And I think a good comparison is we are in family development, so we work a lot with health and nutrition, is to think about, like, when you're trying to eat healthier and get more fruits and vegetables in and stuff, you will need to see what's ahead, and you need to plan ahead. So you have to do your weekly meal planner and know what is in your freezer, instead of just like opening up your freezer and being like, oh, I hope underneath this container right here that I have this, because I can't make this recipe without it. So having a sort of system to budget is that visual reminder of this is what we're going to do. It might make you rethink of going ahead and doing a DoorDash because you've already spent all your money on, you've spent too much money on other things that you can't really afford DoorDash. And is it really worth going into debt for it? So we need to see what's ahead financially as well. So it's pretty basic on how to make your budget calendar. Your first step is to write down all your expenses and organize them by due dates. If you're a person who knows the due dates, you can put it right on your calendar. If not, take another sheet of paper, kind of organize them. And you want to break them down in kind of 4 different areas. So they're same date and same amount payments. So those would be your fixed amount payments, like your housing, health insurance, internet is your first category. Your next category is the same date, but varying amount of payments, like utilities and credit cards. So our electricity and heating bills right now are great examples of those varying amounts, but they're always drawn out or are always due on the same date. We also have things that are varying date and varying amount payments, like groceries and gasoline, that we need to take care of. And then we also have our semi-annual, kind of infrequent payments. A lot of times, unless we budgeted for a whole year, we actually forget about them because we're like, oh yeah, insurance is due, or, oh yeah, I have to register my vehicle. I don't really know how much that is, or, replace something in your home. So, try to get as overall a good picture. Like I said earlier, it's a living item, our calendar and our budget. So if we forgot that I totally, I have Amazon Prime and that comes out once a year, I need to, think about that membership fee later and add that to my calendar budget as well. Then the next thing is to add your income amounts and paydays. And again, all your wages and salaries for household contributors. And then think about your specific savings that you may have. So most people, we encourage you to have an emergency fund, to set aside some money from that in case of a job loss or a true emergency, to be able to use that. Investing for the long haul, so retirement, if it's not automatically withdrawn from your paycheck and you want to put additional aside or some aside. So when do you do that? Once a month, twice a month, every paycheck, a weekly. And then we also have what we call set aside savings, or put and take savings, or is another common way to do that. And that's savings you set aside, put away, that you plan on, but you may not use every month. So you might have medical deductibles for, going to the doctor for a prescription, that kind of stuff, that when they happen, maybe you get prescriptions every 3 months, you have that money for your prescription. So you set it aside, but you took money out each month to be able to afford that. Any other infrequent payments, but that happen, that you want to make sure there's money for. And you might also set aside money for special events such as, purchasing a different vehicle. Maybe you have a big birthday coming up, or gifts to give to others for that. So it's just kind of those sorts of more fun things. Vacation would all be included in those set aside savings as well. Because the whole goal in budgeting is being able to have, the opportunity to do those fun things, but without the stress of how am I going to pay for this? So this is called E&O's example. So we have 2 people, and this is just using a regular calendar. It's actually the Dogs of Law Enforcement calendar that was sitting in my office, and putting down and writing down our things. So it's not color coded. It isn't very clearly marked what is what. But we have 2 paydays here. This person gets paid every 2 weeks. We have another payday over here. They get paid once a month. You can see that they have a plan to transfer some money to savings with each paycheck. They typically go grocery shopping on Fridays. So Fridays, they put down how much that is. They often fill up with gas on Fridays as well. So those are kind of consistent ones. They go to eat twice a month. They do a household kind of run for toilet paper, paper towel, shampoo, cleaning products, all that kind of stuff once a month. So that's included. They have their subscriptions in here, beauty taken care of, student loans as well. So it's just a good way to see, like, this is what we have coming out. I'm going to preference this with, it is possible. I don't have every expense they have. There's no clothing. I realized that after I took the picture, and maybe there are people who are like, you know what, our closet's so full, we're going to wear out our clothes. And so this is just a very, very basic way to start your budgeting with a calendar, to get an idea. We're going to talk a little bit about maintaining, but you always want to check, like, okay, if I get paid here on the 9th, so this is E getting paid on the 9th for $900. The 9th has to cover until the next paycheck for sure, if we're doing a paycheck to paycheck. But we also, need to make sure that all those things are covered that come before. And if not, like, what else do we need to figure out? So this one person, gets paid once a month and is, has a substantial amount compared to this person who's twice a week. And so, seeing that, it helps us to think, like, okay, maybe we know they always get paid on the 15th. Maybe it would be smarter to ask Excel if they could move our bill after the 15th when we have more money available, or moving our mortgage after the 15th, so that that money is available as well. So that's just, This is just I wrote it out on a calendar. This is what my things look like. When you first start out, it's very basic. You're wanting to get that overall picture, and does it make sense when things are due and when your income comes in? What can you or can you not control? So like lunch out, we can control if we decide to take that or not, and how much that is. If we have, budgeted for $40 to have a lunch out on a Thursday once a month. If we go over, then what are we going to spend less on groceries the next day? Maybe we're gonna have to walk more, and so we're not spending so much on gas. Right now, gas prices are fluctuating and high. Sure, everybody knows that. And, we might be like, okay, we might have to adjust going out to eat twice a month or 3 times a month, because now we have to cover gas and we need to be able to drive to work, and that kind of stuff. So those are just some things that, looking at it all written out can help you understand like what's ahead. Do I have the income to cover everything that's ahead as well? So our next example is a digital example. If you have questions or comments, also feel free to put them in the chat, or things that don't make sense. We do want to answer them as we go on. So the digital example, this one was just using a Google Calendar. You can make different calendars if you already use a Google Calendar, so it's not, being shared on your work one, so that not all of your coworkers see what your expenses are. This one is actually color coded. If you look at it, the green here, this is just for a solo person. The green is your income, and the red here, so our car payment, MediaCom, car insurance, Netflix, those are our fixed incomes. So that means that they stay the same every month, like the amount stays the same. Our life insurance is always $60. Our car payment is always $450. And then the other ones are more flexible expenses. So our groceries, our daycare may or may not be fixed or flexible, going to the beauty parlor or whatever, braces, that kind of stuff, getting your car washed, gas, and that kind of stuff. So you can also color code it, if that's helpful for people. The other thing that may help if you're writing it out, depending on how your bills are due, do you have automatic withdrawal, or do you need to mail something? That kind of stuff might be like, my car payments is due on the 16th, but I want to make sure I have it, mailed off the Friday before. So on the 11th, I may add mail car payment so that I know it's going to get there in time and not affect me. So that can be helpful too, to color code those things as well. I think calendar budgets are kind of fun because you can make them your own. Some people, I've seen examples of people who like draw pictures for each of their expenses. I'm not that talented, so you got color coded digitally to do that. So you can kind of make it your own, and decide like what's important to you, what makes sense to you, what works in your life. And if you have a partner or other family members who need to pay attention, like what works for all of you as well. The last kind of calendar example I'm going to share is that the Alabama A&M and Auburn Extension actually have created a money management calendar that they have free to download, and we'll include that in the follow-up email. And it's just, if you've never done budgeting before or a spending plan, it helps you get started as well as to maintain. So like the front part where the pretty picture normally is on a calendar is actually this flexible daily expense chart. And so this one is January, but they obviously do all 12 months. And you're able to like personalize your categories up here as well. If you don't have children, you can just white out children's miscellaneous expenses and put something else that is more pertaining to you. And then each month or each day of the month, you go through and put in the dollar amount and the cents that you have spent on food and groceries, household, etc. So it gives it goes a little bit, it is a spending log. It goes a little bit more than just a general budget to give you that spending log. And then you can also put here on your expense plan, like what did I budget or plan to spend on food and groceries this month? What did I plan to spend on the household? And then at the end of each month, you can see, did you go over your budget or did you go under your budget? And then you can adjust accordingly to that as well. So this is the second page where, the normal calendar dates are. So here is still a place where you can put in and map it out like the first example was, of like, I get paid every other Friday. My partner gets paid the 15th. So it'd be probably, I don't know which day that would be in this month, 14th or 18th, they would get paid. So that you can also see it visually that way. But then it also includes this little chart for your fixed monthly and occasional expenses. So you can see those as well. So your housing, your electricity, gas, all that kind of great stuff. You decide to do a charitable contribution, or a neighbor child was doing a fundraiser, selling Girl Scout cookies, Boy Scout popcorn, whatever. And so those are things that you're like, I don't always do this, but it's good to maybe plan for this because that child is going to be in my life for a while or whatever. And so it's just a good way to be able to kind of keep track all of those as well. It adds a little bit more, I guess, awareness to where your money is going compared to just using the digital or your handwritten one as well. So there are also a whole bunch of apps that you can find that are more calendar based, as you can see here, and they do a whole bunch of things. Next week is all about different apps for budgeting, for debt reduction, for savings plans, all that kind of stuff. So we'll talk a little bit more about that, but there is apps that will also show you this visually, but then can also give you charts and stuff that break down, like, this is the category that it has happened. It's important to also, like, the biggest thing about doing a budgeting and spending plan is to have maintenance on it, is to be able to review it at least when you get paid, so you can see, like, this is my income and this is my expenses coming up. Do I have enough? Review at the end of each month and make adjustments for the next month as well. Especially when you're first starting to use a spending plan or budget, it can be really tricky to know what is all coming ahead. And if you spend something that you didn't budget, you can put that on the calendar as well so that you have it for the next month. And you can also write out a couple of months in advance to help save for upcoming expenses, or to see, like, I know my car insurance is coming to due in 3 months. I pay that every 6 months. And so I'm going to have to find extra money to set aside so that I can pay my car insurance and not have to worry about it. And that could mean, adjusting hours at work, finding another job. We'll talk more about that in a little bit. But that's the important thing, is when we're looking at any type of these budgeting systems, you do have to actually look at them. It's not something you set aside and call good. Sharon, are there any questions in the chat?
Yes, there was a question about, do we have lower income model calendars? And then I think particularly for people who have mainly variable income. And I did just write back to say that I think this calendar from Alabama Extension is designed actually for low income consumers, but that also you can adjust. It's totally doable to adjust something to a variable income, but you can say more, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, and with all of them, the biggest thing is to know your income and to know your expenses and to understand that. So whether you're making $500 a month or $5,000 a month, what are we going to do with that? And so when we're using a calendar to budget, you do still have to do math. It's not, especially if you're running it out, to make sure that, okay, on my payday, I get paid $900. And, ideally it would be great if this payday would cover everything for this, for the 2 paydays, but a lot of us live paycheck to paycheck. It's just a reality. And so, okay, I get paid $900 on the 9th. I'm going to transfer some money to savings, but I also have Midco due, my gas and groceries. I have life insurance due. If I'm solo, I still have AT&T. And is that enough money for me to cover my next expenses coming up? And if it's not, what can I do to reduce expenses? So maybe it's groceries. I'm not going grocery shopping, so I'm going to do a clean out the cupboard dish, and it might be good, it might not be. Maybe I will see if I can pick up extra hours at work, forgo, the haircut beforehand, knowing that this next part is going to be a little tight. So just this, a calendar system isn't really based on income levels. We all have expenses. We all, have some sort of income. The amount varies, but looking at, what we need to do to provide for our basic necessities, and are there some wants that we can fulfill with the amount we have. So as I look at this one, if all of a sudden, no longer has their paycheck and we're living on $1,800 a month, we're going to cut our eyebrows and nails and go without. We may cancel our Hulu and Prime subscriptions. We might try to reduce our eating out or completely null and void that, really look at our household spending. So you can still, regardless of your income, use this system as well.
Well, and Sam, I think particularly if you have variable income, regardless of how much that income is, if you use something like the expense chart to take some records for yourself for a while, you can begin to see kind of over time how much money you have coming in. And even though that income is variable, hopefully in some ways it's on average about the same amount.
Right.
But you can just begin to gather information about yourself to know how much money you have coming in, but also how much money you have going out. And so then you can know at the very least, here's how much I need to cover my basic expenses when you're thinking about your income coming in. So something like that, just, I think I wrote it in the chat, but it provides really good, just baseline information for how much money I need to survive, how much I currently have coming in.
Yeah.
Just gives you info.
Yeah. And then when I'm working with people who have variable income, so somebody who might get laid off in the winter because they work in construction or another field, that might happen to, usually they know their baseline if they're receiving unemployment about how much that is. And then also looking at the average they make after, when they are working. And then it takes a little bit more because you want to be able to meet all of that baseline expenses, as Sharon said. So saving some money from the high income months to cover low income months can also be put on from your budget. So maybe the months of, April, May, June, July, August, September, you're putting more into savings so that you can the set aside savings so that you're able to continue to meet your needs in the other months that don't have as high of income as well. And so those months you just wouldn't include those savings in that calendar system.
Yeah, I've worked with some folks before who got their primary income during the state fair. So they had 10 days or whatever of major income. And then they had to figure out how to dole it out for the rest of the year.
Yeah. Yeah. And the nice thing I think too is that you can look at your weekly, a monthly, somebody who makes all their money or majority of their money during the state fair are really planning their income yearly, but then having to figure out, okay, this is what I need to meet every year. If that didn't cover, what is my plan? Do I have savings? Do I do another job? Do I sell things that I don't use? Exactly what is my plan? And that's the nice thing is that this is, like I said, a visual representation of what my finances look like. So, okay. Any other questions? I think I talked too fast at the beginning. I apologize for that. Feel free to put, what apps would you suggest? Good question, Deanna. So there are a couple of apps, not all of them are, so I haven't used all the apps, obviously, because that's a lot of apps. I do like to try out different ones. And And I would say the apps for calendaring specific, we'll talk about those. Sorry, I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a second. Here we are. So Pocketsmith has a calendar based app. Calendar Budget and Budget Calendar are also apps that looked, just like reading the reviews and looking at the explanation would be very similar to what I worked on. Those were the three apps that if you're wanting to use more of a like having the calendar and seeing that visual, those were the three apps that had that feature. There are other budgeting apps like You Need a Budget, the Mint. We'll talk about more of those, but they don't necessarily have that like overview of the calendar and what is coming up. So Calendar Budget, Budget Calendar, and Pocketsmith were the ones.
Personally, I think Gmail Calendar, it's not an app, but it seems like a really smart way to keep. I've used Gmail for my main email, so I guess that's easy for me to say, but it'll send you reminders and things like that as well, I suppose.
Yep. And that's how this one here was just using a Gmail calendar. And then it's kind of nice because you could add in to this calendar, like these are my dates, but on, add a task where I need to send my money to MediaCom or make sure I pay my credit card. This is the amount due, but I don't have an automatic withdrawn, so I need to pay it on the 20th to set a reminder, like Sharon said as well, to give it specific dates to be able to do that too.
We have another question. Deanna has a good question. She says, do you suggest having different savings accounts for different savings categories? Or do you think that makes it too complicated for beginners? I would say for me, I don't think it's too complicated. I think it's a great way to keep your stuff structured. It makes it less messy. I don't know if it's the fact that you might be a beginner or just that you're somebody who likes that kind of, people just have different approaches to money, I guess. So some people might like it, others might not. But I don't think there's any downside. What do you think?
No, I mean, if it makes sense for you, I always giggle because I've totally been there where, well, I have a savings account, but it only has $5 in it because that's the minimum required to keep it open. And it's been that way for a few months. Or, well, I have 2 cents in there. So sometimes it's more of a hassle to remember you have that savings account and being able to do it with. But if it makes it easier for you to like, this is going to be for car insurance, this is going to be for medical, this is going to be inputting that in another account. And then when you actually use it to move it over, it's kind of what works for you. That's not a one where we have a definite, oh, absolutely, or no, you shouldn't do that. So Joyce mentioned her bank uses a pie chart that separates her expenses based on her debit card use, and she transfers that information to the calendar. And that's a great way, to track your spending and to get updates to see what's happening. A lot of credit cards and banking places do offer that, and they'll actually categorize it for you, which is really nice as well, to be able to see that and kind of like, wow, I didn't realize I spent that much on food or eating out. Or I remember somebody was surprised at their amount of DoorDash. They're like, oh, we don't do it very much. And then we actually like sat down and went through all their expenses, and they're like, wow, do I DoorDash? And I was like, yeah, you live 2 blocks. It would have been a lot cheaper just to walk those 2 blocks and get the food. And so we talked about that. So it's always nice to be able to see those things as well. So we're almost out of time. If you have questions, feel free to keep putting them in there. Again, if for some reason somebody would like a certificate of participation, just email myself and I can send that to you. We do have more webinars coming up. Our 3 more Thrifty Thursdays. We have budgeting using apps or Excel, budgeting with an envelope system, and then our final one is plugging your spending links. If you're a professional and are looking for some additional training, we do have webinars. And this is just one of a series. I'm going to flip through these quick. We have more coming up. But you can see all of our webinars at this extension.umn.edu/courses and events. And that is what we have for you today. So Sherry and I will hang out a little bit for more questions. If not, thank you for joining us on our second Thrifty Thursday.
Yeah, thanks everybody. Have a good rest of your day.